So the other day, I'm in the kitchen chopping up cabbage and talking to my sweet grandma on the phone. And finally, she says, "What are you doing? It sounds like you're hammering something." And I was just chopping cabbage. But it's funny because I get that comment a lot, especially from my family. If I'm talking to them on the phone and I'm doing something in the kitchen, like unloading the dishwasher, they say it sounds like I'm breaking dishes on the other end. So I'm sure it's because I'm moving at a pretty fast pace. I'll admit, I like to move fast. I like to get things done. And at that time, I was chopping cabbage to make sauerkraut. So I wanted to make sauerkraut. I wasn't trying to like rush and get on to the next thing because I didn't want to be doing it. But you know, the faster I chopped the cabbage, the faster I got it into jars, the quicker I could move on to the next thing. And I had other things I wanted to do that day just to get to all the things, right? So it just made me think though, how I have had this journey with noticing my pace and noticing how there's times of my cycle that I need to slow down. And I don't know about you, if you're someone who likes to move quickly and if you ever have trouble slowing down too, but if you find that that's difficult for you too, it's interesting because in our culture we don't always talk about the change of pace, and as women we operate in cycles. We operate not in this linear expectation of our Western culture where things just are kind of always on the ramp up, or you know, we're always talking about productivity, which isn't a bad thing, but it's interesting how the contrast of that, we maybe don't hear as much about the idea of rest, or when it appears that nothing is being done but actually it's something is being done and it's a part of that cycle too. So I happen to think that our real power is not always in doing more, harder, faster, longer, but it's also in just recognizing those cycles. And so just kind of was a little reminder to me about, yeah, you're in a time now where you like to feel energized, or you are feeling energized and things are moving along, but you know, there'll be those times too when you definitely move slower. And if it had been a different time of my cycle and I was chopping cabbage, it probably would have felt and sounded much different. And so if you find that your energy is inconsistent throughout the month, throughout different weeks, times when maybe you feel really amazing and then times when you're not feeling so much that way, we have this tendency, I think, to believe that to reach our goals, that we have to, or we're going to feel tired, stressed, and overwhelmed, because reaching goals is difficult. We have to challenge ourselves, we have to push ourselves. And yes, all those things can be true, but I don't think that we have to at the expense of our well-being. Like, it can all just be part of the cycle instead of doing it at the expense of ourselves. And I'm looking at this experience that I had, and just that little moment of noticing all of these things with the cabbage and making the sauerkraut. And I thought about sauerkraut itself. It's a fermentation process. So you literally cut the cabbage, you put it in jars, and you seal it up and you let it work. You do nothing else. You let it sit. And it's amazing because it appears to be doing nothing if you're not watching closely, or if you don't know what's going on and how the bacteria is at work in there. But the fermentation process is actually very active. There is something being done, but all you have to do is let it sit, and you can't like be stirring it around wondering, okay, what's going on here? You know, it's kind of like when you plant a seed in the soil and you can't just lift the soil up every day and say, why haven't you sprouted yet? Why aren't you growing yet? It's all part of the process, all part of the cycle. So you get what I mean here, right? Doing more isn't always better. The being active isn't always better than resting. They're all valued. So imagine what our lives would be like if we ended that push for productivity and busyness at the expense of our well-being. And while there are times to honor that speed and go with it and chop up all the cabbage and make sauerkraut, there's times to just let it sit too. I believe that we can experience so much more in our lives and in our workouts without that constant hustle. And you may have heard me talk about this before. P.S. That is definitely the conversation we're having in the wild. If you want to check it out, I'll drop the link here. You can go to jennyholbert.com/thewild. And, you know, either way, I want you to remember this sauerkraut medicine that I have received that I'm sharing with you, that we can go fast and we can rest and it's all perfect. And you're amazing. Talk to you soon.